Thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. My name is Ollie Couling, and for those who can't see me, I'm a white male with short light brown hair. I'm sat at my home desk in a well-lit room in Bristol, surrounded by a few houseplants and some coats hanging from the door there. My buddy today is Roberta Beattie. She will be looking after the chat, posting links, and organising the Q&A at the end. If you have any issues, message Roberta and she can hopefully help. We also have a live captioner today, Elaine, who is going to be manning that. If you do require captions, go to the CC button at the bottom, hit show captions. That should fix that. Otherwise, if you want a link to a full window version in the chat, Elaine can post that into the chat now, please. Okay, so this is going to be a 30-minute presentation with a 10-15 minute Q&A at the end. The aim of today is to help you guys stream your day-to-day activities and hopefully redirect focus towards some more feasible and sustainable goals. I really hope that you will come away from the session today feeling inspired, feeling motivated, that you can make positive change to your current routines. Okay, so the Digital Culture Network. I think we have a full house today, so I'm a little bit nervous, but yeah, do say hello in the chat. I can see that's already starting. There will be a recording to follow up that will be available on the Digital Culture Network website under the Knowledge Hub. So if you can't make it, for those of you who aren't here, you know, thanks for clicking in later. Anything else? Yeah, okay, let's get straight into it, I think. Right. I'm sure we are all fairly familiar with this kind of scenario here. So a show of thumbs, please. Who feels like they're often trying to spin too many plates? Let's see some thumbs. Oh, wow. That is a healthy number of thumbs. Wicked. Okay. Well, that was amazing. You know, our sector, the arts and culture sector, we are bursting with creative people. We all have strong visions. We all have tremendous passion and enthusiasm for what we're doing, but sometimes our ambitions can push the limits of what is manageable. And this is kind of the theme for today, how we can go about fixing that, I guess. Oops, sorry. So before we start, I'd just like for you to take a second to imagine how you or your organization might benefit from a more kind of manageable workload. If you want to share your thoughts in the chat, please do pop them in. But yeah, just hold that thought for a second, and we're going to come back to this at the end. Okay, hopefully you've thought of something. So it's widely considered by strategists that if capacity or resources are limited, the best way to overcome a challenge is through clever design or tighter coordination. And I want to begin this webinar today with a quote from a really well-regarded strategist, Richard Rumelt, who's the author of a great book called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. If you haven't read it, I'd recommend that. So I'll read this out. At the core, strategy is about focus, and most organizations don't focus their resources. Instead, they pursue multiple goals at once, not concentrating enough resources to achieve a breakthrough in any one of them. Oh, sorry, this thing is, okay, here we go. Next slide, please. Okay, sorry about that. So hopefully that set the scene a little bit and backing up these ideas with some theory. But the Digital Culture Network, since conception in 2019, we have supported over 1,500 organizations and resolved over 4,200 individual cases with people like yourselves. And this setup puts us in a very unique situation. And that is, we are in daily contact with you guys. We hear about your pain points. We hear about your plans. We hear about your challenges every day. This presentation is a direct response to that and to the things that we and myself have learnt supporting this sector. So when we did an internal review within our team of tech champions, and we found that around 85% of organizations and individuals we speak to say that resources they have available do not match their workload or their output. This issue was not only observed across big and smaller organizations, but also observed across all of our specialisms, ranging from, website to SEO to strategy to social media. The three most common reasons we found why individuals and organizations felt overloaded were these three things: small teams, limited budgets, and a skills or a knowledge gap. And often, actually, it was all three of these things. So unfortunately, I'm not in a position to help you with your budgets. However, easing up capacity is what I'm here we're here to look at today. There is a really great quote from a speaker called Saoirse Bertha, who recently spoke at the Nudge Stock conference this year. She says, "Behind every business problem, there is a human heartbeat." And I really like that statement. And it is a human problem. We are all humans. We make mistakes. I certainly do. So my primary motivation is to help people be more effective with less stress. That is what I'm here for. This observation was also reflected in our last webinar, hosted by Nicola Barrett, my colleague, who ran a poll. And yeah, you can see here that according to social media managers, 44% of people feel that limited time or resources are the biggest challenges they face right now in the social media landscape. Right, there's an interesting, so I want to come on to a bit of kind of theory now. There's an interesting idea that 80% of results typically come from 20% of actions. And this really is one of the principles that underpin the ideas I'm going to present later. And so, as an example, I bet you guys I bet you guys wear 20% of your clothes 80% of the time, and I know I certainly do, and I did today. But so let's apply this principle, this logic, to our marketing. What if, even if parts are taken away, we can still be really, really successful and achieve our goals? So for this presentation, I've set out to answer one question really, which is, how can we achieve more if resources are limited? And what I've come up with is a strategy to help you do less while still achieving your goals. I'm approaching this from a marketing angle. I'm a marketer, but this exercise is not just limited to marketers. I think it applies to many activities and disciplines within our sector. For example, sales, operations, project management, the list goes on. I think this framework is a useful tool for all people. Right, so here's the strategy. Let's do less. Easy, right? It might sound counterintuitive, perhaps, and I know it's a bold statement, and we will unpick this throughout the rest of the presentation. But I want to remind you that things can be simpler. There are tools out there and techniques out there to assist with this idea of making life more easy, more manageable, and doing less. And I want to empower you lot to have the confidence to get off that hamster wheel that I know we all feel like we're on often, and to change our approach for how we deliver plans and run our day-to-day activities and routines. So doing less, it's a nice catchy kind of statement, but really what I mean, I suppose, is to prioritize the things that matter the most. What might those things be? So the things that play to your strengths, the things that make you more unique, the things that support sustainable business and customer outcomes. These are the things we're going to look at. So this is what I've come up with. It's called the Digital Strategy Dartboard, and it is a framework or a tool I've created especially for this subject that provides a framework of vital components and processes that will help you to achieve this idea of doing less, prioritizing the things that matter. I guess the idea behind it is to direct focus slightly away from those goals that I know we're all like constantly on the back of our minds, but redirect focus towards systems and processes. I think this is where we can make the biggest difference. I think these things, if done well and if done strategically, can lead to more attainable and sustainable outcomes going forward in whatever we decide to do. All of these things are wrapped around and encompassed by our long-term aims and values, and that's something we'll talk about as well. And what this framework can do is to help you understand your current trajectory. In doing so, this will highlight the things you are maybe not doing enough, the things so that you can make this sustainable progress. This is something anyone can use to achieve your aims and amplify your own identity and values. I think that's an important part of this as well. I believe that kind of nurturing of your identity and values creates a really healthy and productive work environment. People tend to work better when they're happier and have greater pride in what they do. And I think these are some of the things that I hope come across in this, how to use this framework. So you can use the QR code here to access an Excel version of the framework that you can refer to throughout the next kind of 20 minutes. Yeah, take a look. It's hopefully fairly self-explanatory, but I'll talk about how we use it in a minute by kind of running it through the machine and using a case study to demonstrate it. So to demonstrate it, I want to run it through my last company I worked at, actually, ClickerMe. I worked here for between 2018 to 2022, sorry, getting my dates mixed up. But I was marketing director here, so I saw this product, this organization from start to finish, so it gives me a good idea of how to demonstrate it. Right. So what was our aim and values, or ClickerMe's aim and values, sorry. So really our mission was to be the #1 network for fashion creatives. This was our guiding beacon, our North Star, as it were. And it sets out our values and commitments for everything we do. It influenced all our decision-making thereon. So in terms of ClickerMe, our guiding values were to be free for all creatives, to be free from hierarchy, that was really important, and to be free from advertisements. So you know what we wanted to do long term and the kind of parameters we were working within to do this. So just to set the scene here, our resources, or limitations you might look at it as, is that we had 2 full-time employees. So that's not a lot really to create something with such a big ambition. 1 influential board member, 1 junior developer, and 2 paid interns. So a small team, and I think this reflects quite closely the kind of teams that we probably work in as well, as in the art sector. So what were our goals? Well, we had one very clear focused goal, and it was to reach a critical mass of 10,000 verified members. This was a blueprint, I guess, that encompassed all of our day-to-day activities, actions, and decisions. I think it was a good goal for supporting this idea of doing less to achieve more, because it was very tangible. It was just one number, and it felt like quite an attainable number as well, because within the kind of 3 years we set to do this, we figured 10,000 was manageable within the resources and capacity we had. One great reason for these kind of taking time to consider goals well is that they allow you to say no to things. And I think that is a huge part of a strategy that I like to think of. You know, it separates the wheat from the chaff, I guess. So our strategy, at Click-Me, to hit this 10,000 members, to be the #1 network for fashion creatives, was to attract the best talent, and the rest will follow. You know, it was a simple statement that we felt had a lot of weight to it. We also, it's probably worth mentioning that we wanted to establish ourselves in London first. So we selected a location and kept it kind of tight within that. We didn't extend our kind of capacity. So now I'm going to break down how this plan developed over 3 years by reviewing the 3 key processes outlined in the dartboard I showed you earlier. Right. So this is the kind of detailed view of the dartboard. So firstly, we zoom out. Process number 1. And you zoom out because you want to identify the main challenges, realize your best opportunities, and choose these proximate or attainable realistic objectives. It's important to zoom out firstly because you can see the whole. You can consider the risks from further back, and you can actually exploit these opportunities that arise. In Click-Me's example, our challenge was speed to market and a growing competition in this kind of online network web app kind of space. Daisy.com, the dots being 2 kind of well-known ones in that space. The opportunity we felt was that collaboration projects were becoming integrated into how the fashion industry was developing at that time. That was our main kind of laser focus there. And our objective was actually that in zooming out, we identified a Facebook group that existed already called London Fashion Creatives, and it consisted of 80,000 members at the time, I think. And our objective, our single objective really at this point, was to convert 20% of those people and move them over to our platform where we thought we could offer a better service, basically. So how did this support doing less and achieving more? So we concentrated our resources on creating a solution for a problem that really, really did exist. You know, we were clear that what we were doing was going to have real quality results. Okay, next part of the process, evaluate. So evaluation, the 3 components of that are to identify your key audiences, to realize your advantage, and to choose effective channels, marketing channels in this case. We evaluate because circumstances change, strategies can change, people and teams can change, we can change, tech can change, trends can change. There's a whole number of reasons why it's really important to regularly reevaluate what you are doing. The areas in Click-Me's example that we required close attention were customers. So we, through research and spending good time doing it, allowing that time to do it, we identified that fashion designers really sat at the top of this kind of mobile or pyramid of how collaborations were started and how they worked. They were kind of the linchpin of that thing. The advantage then is that we believed that moderating our members was the key to creating these successful collaborations, because we knew and had identified that having collaborators of a similar level or even a higher level was what everybody, what our audience wanted. So it was that ability to moderate and keep a high quality of membership on our platform. Also, not many other of our competitors had done this, so their goals were different. Their goals were like high growth, fast. Ours was more about quality over quantity. So channels, how did we go about marketing this thing to these people? So actually, because we were so clear on our advantage and we knew who our customers were and how we wanted to reach them and what our opportunity was, we actually went about our marketing in quite a old school way, I guess. So initially, when we were building our first kind of solid foundation, we would pretty much spend all of our focus on one-to-one outreach. That was DMing the fashion designers on Instagram. It was sending emails to university students in the fashion colleges, Central St. Martin's, for example. It was going to going to events, industry events, and actually just talking to people, handing out business cards. And it worked, you know, because we were very clear on the strategy. After that, as we grew and this one-to-one outreach became difficult for us to manage it internally, you can only send so many emails a day, right? So we had to change our plan a little bit. And what we did there, once we had a good solid base of people on the network, we started to actually pay for and fund collaboration projects so that people could do work and get and improve their portfolios. And I think, Roberto, I have some examples of these that I'd like you to pop in the chat if you don't mind, just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about there. And they're quite nice, pretty images too. So I think the point is here that many organizations, and I know this is true, we all expect miracles from things that have always been there. And there's also this pressure to always try the latest thing. You're excited about new things. We all are excited about new things. But ask yourself, are they fit for the job? Can you execute them within your skill set? And I think social media is a great example of this. There's a big tendency to want to have to be on TikTok, for example, if you're in the art sector, but you know, not everyone knows how to use it to best effect, and actually some people just don't like using it. So if it doesn't play to your strengths, you don't have to do it. There are other ways, as long as your strategy is tight. Okay, and lastly, last process in the model is coordinate. So the components of this are augmenting human capacity and leveraging your available resources. Alignment and coordination is extremely important because this is what creates power in our marketing. This is the engine behind it, really. I'm sure many of you have seen a Netflix show called Squid Games, and there's a really good scene, a really like iconic scene where there's a tug of war across a big canyon, I guess, or a bridge. And it's interesting that the weaker team working as one unit were easily able to overpower the team of stronger individuals who were not pulling together. And I think that is basically my point summarized in one cultural reference. But how does coordination support this idea of doing less and achieving more? Well, in Click and Me's example, we were careful not to grow too quickly. We didn't want to outpace our own capacity. We understood our limitations, I guess, and we were able to do things well, but do things slowly. And this worked for us. Also, what we did is we coordinated marketing activities around new product features. We had a really good web developer. She was young. but she was talented. And each time we released a new feature, that would basically kind of set the tone for our marketing, and it got people to come back. It was great for retention, great for keeping people engaged in us and reminding us that we were still here. So it leveraged our limitations almost. We flipped it. Okay, so last kind of part of the dartboard here is data and insights. And we all know data is super important in what we do. Data is the single source of truth. It should run through everything. And it is what shows the impact of your actions, be that good or bad. How does data support the idea of doing less and achieving more? Deep knowledge, in Clickamy's example, we needed deep knowledge of our membership, and that was a key part of our objective, to kind of to pick out those fashion designers, to make sure we had the best people coming to the platform. Data enables you really to zoom in and to zoom out at the same time, and as a strategist, that is so important to what I do and how we support the sector. It allows you to identify what's working and what's not in the context of your strategy and your goals. It's specific to Clickamy as well. An interesting kind of outcome of how we use data was that we built quite a kind of modern onboarding and technical onboarding process, because we had this moderation in place. But capturing that data or preloading that data at the start, it allowed us to automate a lot of our comms, a lot of our notifications in the app, which interestingly gave the impression of a really highly engaged and active community, even though there was only about 5 people behind the scenes, behind that kind of curtain, like Wizard of Oz. So it's brilliant for automation if you can execute it, if you know how to do it. And automation does need constant monitoring. So what's the outcome of all this? Well, we hit our goal of 10,000 verified members, but at this point, we were a commercial product. Our bosses wanted us to commercialize this business, so we had to reassess our strategy and start again. We had to create a new strategy. And so I wish I basically had this framework at that point, so we could do this well, because unfortunately at that point COVID happened, and things changed quite rapidly. So let's just kind of summarize what I have learned through my experiences and how the dartboard can support you guys. So make haste, but slowly. When faced with limited resources, I would always recommend making plans, setting goals, creating strategies that have small measured steps in the right direction, as opposed to kind of big leaps in the wrong direction. That is super important. I like to think of strategy a bit like rungs or steps on a ladder. Make sure you get, the first step is in place before you move up to the next step, and so on. That is how you create, power and sustainability in your marketing. So let's just kind of talk about these small measured steps. They can increase positivity. What are the benefits? Increased positivity and belief. Doing things well and maybe doing things less, it creates a better work culture. You take more pride in what you do. You see more success in your plans. You can make more certain outcomes. For example, in Clickamy's case, customer satisfaction went up because we were able to over deliver on more things. Talking about over delivery, actually, there's an interesting kind of nuance to that, is that your board or your directors often respond really favorably to higher over delivering in fewer things, because it just looks better, basically, and that story, that narrative is more engaging, more captivating. Another thing, you have more time to experiment and innovate, and this is incredibly important when you're looking to scale up. scaling is about understanding and your value, understanding your advantages. So having that time to reflect is super important, and innovate, sorry, is super important for scaling. Also, you can react more quickly to emerging opportunities or threats, and adapt and change more easily if things do kind of come in the way, like COVID, for example. By not overextending yourself, you're more easily able to kind of navigate around things. You haven't, yeah, if that's clear. Okay, so just a quick recap on the dartboard. These it's all about the processes and the components that come with helping you to realize what you want to achieve better, to help you evaluate what areas best support your long-term aims and values. It helps you prioritize the most attainable goals and activities, the ones that can have sustained power. And it helps you, to create that power by coordinating people and resources that may be limited. I guess it's a short-term pain for a long-term gain. And I understand that this is quite a conceptual thing. These conversations can be difficult. It's easier said than done at any level. And I respect that all of you guys are unique. You will have different circumstances, but this is where the DCN are here to help, the Digital Culture Network. So if you want to book a one-to-one, Roberta is going to pop a link in the chat there for you to get in touch, speak to us about these things, and help you be successful. So let's go back to this kind of plate spinning analogy, I guess. My main takeaway really, and really what I wanted to say, I could have said this in 1 minute probably, but let some plates fall. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't try and achieve everything at once, because you can't. And let's think about dropping things that do not support your goals. Focus on keeping the most important plates spinning. Also, it's important to remember that achieving more doesn't necessarily mean higher numbers. Achieving more in this lesson, I suppose, is about making the good stuff last longer, keeping those plates spinning for longer. And finally, this topic today, I guess, is a practical guide for better prioritization, really. But I want to recognize that there are also kind of psychological patterns and motivations that are connected to this kind of idea of plate spinning. I myself am a bit of a perfectionist, so I understand. We have to bring those into play, but these causes are also part of this ongoing conversation. I have some further resources here. So there's an article I've written that supports this webinar. I've put together 3 really good prioritization tools and techniques that you can look into to help you kind of think about how to prioritize these goals using this process and this framework. Roberta, if you wouldn't mind popping that in the chat. There's also a lot of these ideas actually are taken from a book called Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've read it, but if you haven't, I'm going to put a link to that in the chat too. It's a really fantastic way at kind of rethinking about how you look at your processes, your systems, and kind of reframing what goals mean as well. So definitely take a read. Right, we started on a quote, so let's end on one. So in the words of American novelist Mark Twain, so the secret to getting ahead is to get started. The secret of getting started is breaking your complex, overwhelming tasks into small, manageable tasks, and then starting with the first one. So I guess a bit like my like the ladder analogy there. Right, so we're coming to the end here. I asked you at the beginning to think about how you might be able to benefit from doing less. now is a time to now we've kind of talked about this, you've heard some of the things I have to say. Can you carve out time in your routine to think about these things? How are you going to do that? I think it's really important. It doesn't take long, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, just to remind yourself about this idea that you don't have to be overloaded all the time, and there are ways to fix that. Cool. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this whole topic. I hope it's been helpful. Please do get in touch. Our email address is digitalnetwork@artscouncil.org.uk, or we have a knowledge hub with some brilliant articles. The prioritization article I wrote is also on there. There's links to future webinars that Roberta's going to pop in the chat now. Yeah, so do head over and take a look. We're adding new stuff every week. Here's how to just generally get in touch with the team at the Digital Culture Network. We have the email there. Do join the mailing list to hear about more of these great events and webinars. And please share your thoughts on our socials, ACEDCN and #Digital Culture Network. That's it for this presentation. So I think, Roberta, can we move into the Q&A, please?
Well done, Ollie. That was really good. Yeah, we've had a few questions. I'm not sure how many we can answer or how much we can answer in this time. But one question is, now Twitter or X is dying, what is our third social media that we should look to after we have created our Facebook and Instagram content? I guess that's more of a kind of general strategy question around audiences.
I guess my first reaction to that is, do you need a third one?
Yeah.
But if you do, I would look at what your audiences are using. It's audience research, I'd say.
Yeah, go where your audiences are.
Yeah, go where your audience is. But also, do you need a third one?
And is Twitter dying? Is X dying?
I don't know. That's not a question for me, I'm afraid. I actually don't.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's not one for me.
Yeah. So another question we've had is, this is a great framework and example, particularly for starting out and building a first-time strategy. I wonder if you could speak a little on how to apply this to existing work and projects, i.e. how to streamline resources and improve capacity without losing existing successes.
That's a great question. Thanks, Lauren, as well, for identifying, for understanding the framework. I hope that's great news. I would say, actually, I talked about constantly reevaluating. I think this zoom out, evaluate, coordinate idea should be happening all the time. It's not a one-stop shop. It's, I guess every call I have with an organization, this is what I ask. Let's zoom out. What are you trying to do? Let's evaluate what's working, what's not. Let's coordinate. What does your resources look like? Things are not linear in this industry. There's always a wiggly line. Sometimes you do well, sometimes you kind of underperform. But generally, things are going in the right direction. But I personally, my kind of philosophy on this is to carve out an hour a month, 2 hours a month, sit with your team and just go through these things again. Like, are we still valuable to our audiences? Do we have an advantage? What's happening with our competitors? Are they kind of stealing some of our audiences, or are we cannibalizing our own? Is our marketing working for us or not? Like the Twitter example, now that Twitter is changing, do we still want to be on Twitter? I don't know. Let's see how well the other ones are doing. And that's where the data comes in as your best friend. The things around the outside of this framework, your long-term aims and values, they don't change a lot. They kind of encompass everything you're doing within that. But and your goals don't often change once you've set one that everyone's kind of aligned and agreed with. It's the processes and the components within that should be looked at regularly, and I would probably, at the very least, say every 3 months. It's kind of seasonally. Yeah. Hope that answers. But let's have a conversation. I'd love to hear what you're up to. So yeah, book a one-to-one. I'd love to speak to you.
That's a great answer, Ollie. The last question we've had is, read the data element of the dartboard. What if that data is inconclusive or there are too many factors, i.e. social media reach engagement at this point in time is increasingly tricky as the algorithms are all over the place. So how can you gauge whether it's your content or external factors that's driving the results, good or bad?
Yeah, brilliant question as well. When it comes to measurement of marketing channels, my personal take on this is to always try and boil it down to the most kind of tangible baseline goal you can. So for example, if engagement on Twitter, or if the social landscape or is changing and your metrics are looking like they're changing, fluctuating, there's always still going to be a route back to something like a business objective, like revenue or newsletter signups or ticket sales. If you can link it back to those kind of core KPIs, then you should have a fairly steady picture of what's going on. And that kind of turmoil within the channels becomes less of an issue. It's more about the important actions when people get from A to B, That's how I look at it. But I must plug my colleague James Akers' great webinar called Why Are You Measuring That? I think he talks about this exact issue.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, jump on the Knowledge Hub. Roberta, maybe we could find a link to that.
Yeah, I'll try and find the link to that quickly.
Because he basically talks about this exact thing, and it's a really well put together webinar. So definitely, Damien, take a look at that one.
And that was all we had for questions.
I think there's one more there.
Is there?
Daisy.
It was a fresh one. Here we go.
Okay, we should have time for one more. Yeah, okay. I'll answer this and then we'll go.
Yeah, how might you approach streamlining marketing activity strategy in line with wider organizational and funder strategy requirements?
Okay, let me just read that again.
How might you approach streamlining marketing activity and strategy in line with wider organizational and funder strategy requirements? So that.
Okay, I mean, your funder strategy requirements, I guess, are fairly fixed. So you'd probably have to work backwards from that objective or that requirement. Again, I think it's a sense of maybe you can kind of use the framework in reverse. So look at your resources. What have we got available? What do we have? What tools do we have to work with? What channels are we working with now? Are they working for us or not? Yeah, so it's just like those part 2 and part 3 of that wheel, I think, is where you should focus your attention at this point. But streamlining it, I guess, would be, you'd obviously have to, you can't do it immediately. I'd say you'd have to put a kind of plan in place for making sure you're capturing things over a few months, and then review that, see which channels, see which parts of this strategy are working or not towards that funder requirement. I guess it's a case of kind of just putting everything out, laying everything out on the table, making sure that you're tracking it well, making sure the data is of good quality and the kind of right data for what you need to learn, and then and then kind of just monitoring it, maybe kind of monitoring it more regularly during this time to kind of speed up that learning. And then reassess and go back to the framework and have another look.
Yeah, that's a great answer, Ollie.
But again, get in touch if we can have a look at that, and I can help you with maybe a way of, or we as a team can help you kind of find a way to hit those requirements. Okay, well, thanks so much everyone for joining us. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from you soon. And thanks a lot.